Welcome to Absolute Trust Talk with your host, Kirsten Howe. Absolute Trust Talk brings you tips, tools, advice, and interviews to help you build a reliable knowledge base on estate planning, business, and finance to start preparing for your future today.
Hello and welcome to Absolute Trust Talk. This is our video podcast at Absolute Trust Counsel. I am Kirsten Howe. I'm joined here by my associate attorney, Jessica Colbert, and we're going to talk a little bit more about a very specific trustee do and don't. We're kind of on a roll here. We've done a couple of episodes on some of our favorite tips for trustees and executors. Today, this particular trustee do and don't is directed at surviving spouses. So people who have experienced the death of their spouse. And this particular topic is about things that they need to pay attention to in their joint married trust. And I'm talking about the A-B trust. We've had other episodes on this topic, but it does fall into the category of trustee do's and don'ts. But I think before we really get into this, we got to help our listeners understand, what are you talking about? What is an A-B trust? I don't know what that means. So Jessica, I'm going to ask you to give us the basics on A-B trust.
An A-B trust is a trust that requires, upon the death of the first spouse, that the trust actually split into two trusts, thus the A and the B. And this was a very popular structure for avoiding paying estate taxes upon the death of the first spouse. And each person has an estate tax exemption amount. And the way that works is, upon the death of a person, we add up the value of everything that they owned. If it's over that estate tax exemption amount, then your family will have to pay estate taxes. If it's under that exemption amount, then your family will not have to pay estate taxes. Now, we currently have a very high estate tax exemption amount. It's $13.6 million per person.
Right. And the fact that it's so high, that is way more money than the vast majority of my clients, my friends, myself, everybody I know has. So worrying about estate tax is not what we do. That's, for most people, that's not an issue. So most people don't need that A-B structure to avoid paying estate tax. There might be other reasons why you want it, but most people don't need it for that reason. What is involved when we have to split the trust is we have to get valuations on every asset. We have to do legal work to retitle assets. We have to figure out, what are we going to put in the A trust? What are we going to put in the B trust? There's a lot of legal work, financial work. There's ongoing tax reporting that has to happen. It's just complicated and not for everybody. What we find a lot of times is that spouses don't realize that they need to do this work. They don't know what their trust says, and their spouse has just died. And they think that, I have a trust. I don't need to do anything else. I'm set. And when you have this A-B style trust, that's not true.
Yes, we find that when a client comes to us and their spouse died many years ago, it ends up being a lot more complex to make this split happen. If the spouse died 7 years ago, we have to go back and get appraisals for things 7 years ago. And that just ends up being a lot more complexity, which ends up also being more expensive for the legal work. Now, we understand, of course, that when your spouse dies, your first call isn't going to be to your lawyer. It's not the first thing you're thinking of. You're grieving, and we understand that. And so take your time, but you do need to address this within a reasonable period of time. So we recommend, getting in contact with your lawyer as soon as possible.
Yeah. And I would say, within the first year, if you can start taking care of these things, that's fine. When it gets too much further out, it becomes what we call a stale trust, meaning it should have been split a long time ago. It didn't happen. Now we have a lot of work. We got to sort this out. What I am also going to add in there is that in some situations, for some families, it makes sense to petition the probate court and ask the court to issue an order that says, even though your trust says it has to be split into two trusts, you don't have to do that. Some families like that approach rather than going through all the hassle of splitting the trust and then the tax reporting and all of that. It's not appropriate in every family.
The bottom line, trustee do and don't, is to check and see if this is something that applies to you.
And don't put it off. Don't put it off.
Yes.
The longer you delay, the harder it is, as with most things. Okay. I hope that was informative. Jessica, thank you. And we look forward to connecting with you next time.
Thank you for joining us today for another episode of Absolute Trust Talk Live. If you enjoyed listening in, then don't forget to subscribe. You can find us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you may listen by searching Absolute Trust Talk. While you're there, we would also love for you to leave us a review. And then why not share your favorite episodes with family, friends, or colleagues too? You can find all of our shows and corresponding show notes by visiting absolutetrustcouncil.com. You'll also find a variety of other free resources, including our ebooks, videos, blogs, presentations, and more. If you need help with your estate planning or administration, we also offer a free discovery call to help get the process started. You can find more information on booking your session by visiting absolutetrustcouncil.com/scheduling. If you join us for the broadcast, you can submit questions during the show. But if not, don't worry. You can always get in touch with us by sending a quick message to info@absolutetrustcouncil.com. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you soon.
This podcast is not meant to take the place of legal advice from an attorney and does not create an attorney-client relationship. If you do have a legal question or issue, please consult with an attorney.